Good evening. What if Apple was made for poor people? There have been several comments that I've seen, many actually, over the course of several months, that talk about how Android phones are for poor people. And this statement really pisses me the off. I hate it when people say that. But I get to thinking, and I was at work one day, and I was like, oh, that's an idea coming to me. Oh. The only reason that Apple has the prestige and the image of being a status symbol of wealth and high status is because they choose not to make phones, excuse me, that are cheaper than $450 or so. They tried it with the 5C, and they tried it with the SE. Interesting how those rhymed. But Apple's never not made flagship-only phones, with the exception of those two. And with the 5C, they already stopped the production of those really, really early. When I say early, I mean like very shortly after they started making them as far as cell phones go and the different lines and stuff. But the whole nature of iOS, the closed source, proprietary, ensures that the control will never leave the iron fist of Apple. And then you go over to the Android side of things, and Android's an open source system. I could, if I had the money, hypothetically, I could pay for a warehouse and pay for a bunch of manufacturing equipment and pay, and then make a phone that I charge people $50 for that runs on Android. Would it work very well? No, it wouldn't. Because just, So you take somebody who doesn't have the ability to shell out, you know, $600 to $1,000 on a phone and has to go get something like $50 smartphone. I believe the only reason why people say that Android phones are for poor people is because that's the only operating system that is available to them. Android phones aren't designed for poor people. Android is designed for everyone, and a lot of smartphone makers who make phones with Android in it because it'd be stupid to try to put their own operating system on it because it just would not succeed, make phones with Android on it. And then in, the third world countries, or for those who it's not financially feasible for them to shell out like a crap ton of cash, they get an Android phone. That does not mean that Android phones are for poor people. And here's another thing, which kind of ties into the title of the video. If Apple were to choose, because they could, to make a phone that ran on iOS, that was technically an iPhone, for $50, how many people do you think would buy that? That number is, I'm expecting that number to be extremely high. And let's say they do that for 5 years. Let's say they make a $50 iPhone, sell it for 5 years. Will it work very well? No. But we're being hypothetical here. After that, you know what? 5 years is not enough. Let's go 10 years. If they make a $50 iPhone for 10 years, how many people do you think would say, oh, Android's just for poor people? If Apple made a $50 smartphone, they would be just as much for poor people, whatever that means, as Android does. If anything, Android's the winner here because it makes telecommunications available for whom it is not financially feasible to get a flagship. I suppose the closing comments here would be, or comment here would be, all it would take for iPhones to be for poor people is them choosing to make a $50 smartphone. So in essence, Apple Incorporated is choosing to ostracize. Computer, what's the definition of the word ostracize?
Ostracize is usually defined as expelled from a community or group.
Right. Ostracize those who just don't have enough money, which is kind of snobby, in my opinion. Premium is premium, but I mean, come on. There's a $950 Samsung phone. Android's not for poor people. Android's just the only mobile operating system for which it is feasible to make cost-effective smartphones with. And if that didn't exist, there'd be a whole hell of a lot more of the world disconnected. We're going to end this vid as always with an appreciation for our Scotties, the patrons who pay $10 and up per month. And those are Stuart Glover, Kyler, Eric Price, Stephen Nichols, Nick Hawks, Spidget, Sin O, Josh Utley, Shannon Jones, Unit Omega, John O'Brien, and Christopher Caswell.
BeamtUp. I stay with my Scotties. My Scotties are my boys. I ride with them. And I put that on the generation.
And the next tier down, the $5 to $6 a month pledge tier, the Super Beamers are Albert and Mr. Patrick Hayes. And the base level tier, $1 to $2 a month, includes Encrypted Bunny and Excelsior. Stay mindful and stay beaming. What if the only reason that there is a, how do I say it, a large amount of people, okay, hold on. You know what? So you take someone who does not have, someone who, blah. So you take someone who doesn't have the ability to shell out, you know, 800, doggo, what are you doing? Sophie, get up. Android's just the only mobile operating system for which it is feasible to make